Hey, thanks for coming to today's Climate Solutions Caucus meeting. The co-chair, Senator White, was called into another meeting, so she is not here today, but I do have Representative Rice here with me as well. And today's a very cool meeting, I think. One of the silver linings to climate change, I think, is the fact that we have such an opportunity for workforce development and having a lot of well-paying jobs that don't necessarily require, 4-year plus another 2-year plus another 3-year degree that really bring value and benefit to our communities in a very specific, tangible way. So today's focus is to give some background and information on the Climate Workforce Network Action Team. Back in 2021, a lot of different people came together before Energy Action Network at one of their summits and said, we're identifying that there is this gap if we're going to be weatherizing this many homes, updating this many heating systems, assisting with various vehicle transformation patterns. We're going to need workers. So what does this look like? So today you're going to get an overview of what this group has been working on for the last 2.5 years. There are a couple of handouts. This is basically a summary update about what the Climate Workforce Network Action Team has been working on. And then most recently, there was a series of focus group studies done interviewing potential employees, workers, about what their perspective is in terms of what makes it a meaningful place to work. What do they look for when they apply for jobs? What are obstacles? And with that, I'm going to pass the torch. We have quite a few representatives from the Network Action Team. I'll say our monthly or every other month coalition-wide meeting sometimes has upwards of 60 participants from a variety of different areas. We have several of them here, not 60, fortunately. And I've asked each one of them to give a name, where they're, where they're coming from, and what they're doing to address this climate workforce question and challenge. And then we will have one of the co-chairs of the Climate Workforce Action Team, Dylan Giambattista, give sort of a update, wraparound summary of what the group has done, and walk through some of the focus group findings. And I should just, full disclosure, I happen to be one of the co-chairs as well, along with Dylan Giambattista. So I'll pass it off.
My name is Tom Longstrap. I'm the Executive Director of Resource. Resource is also part of Serve, Learn, and Earn, which is a coalition of workforce providers with Audubon Vermont Works for Women, and Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. The legislature provided some funding 2 years ago and again last year, and we're in the House of Appropriations in the workforce bill this year as well. And this funding, is really allowing each of our programs to grow and better meet the need. I got a call from a HVAC contractor telling me he was dropping us as a customer, which felt a little ironic because we were trying to fill and meet his employment needs. But anyway, so we're in the market. Anyone knows a new HVAC contractor, service for our Wilson site, let me know. But so clearly there's a real need. The coalition is expanding our programs all across the state. I can speak best to resource programs. I'm going to keep it pretty brief because Pam Laser is also going to talk a little bit about specifically our weatherization. But our programs really run the gamut from work experience, which don't necessarily get young people into a job, but lay the foundation for work. To workforce development, where a key outcome is placement into jobs. And then we also newly have an apprenticeship program for construction, which is trying to get laborers to be carpenters. And there's just such a demand in this whole industry that each of these programs are needed to sort of grow the pipeline and get more people who are on the sidelines, who aren't working, have barriers, have challenges to be able to overcome those and get into the workforce. So we've been growing. We're going to do 20 different intensives all across the state that we do in HVAC, construction, weatherization, and logistics. And just now we are graduating today at this moment. I should be there, but a new hospitality initiative, which is also in demand as well. So I'll leave it there. So we appreciate the funding we've gotten from the legislature. So thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Allison Donovan. I'm here with Efficiency Vermont. And Efficiency Vermont is part of a project and a grant that OEO was awarded from the U.S. Department of Energy to research, design.
OEO?
OEO.
Can you say what that is?
Office of Economic Opportunities. Thank you. Sorry about that. Who manages the weatherization program. So the grant was just signed. This will be a 3-year project to design a weatherization training center. There'll be a robust stakeholder engagement and leveraging all the good work that's happened, in Vermont, pulling it together to really support the careers of the future.
I'm Carl Robachek, Deputy Director and Network Manager at Energy Action Network. And while Energy Action Network doesn't advocate for specific policies, we do bring people together around issues like climate workforce. And so we're definitely open to having more people join the conversation about how we grow this workforce, both on the employee side and the employer side.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Donforth. I'm the director of the Vermont Energy Education Program. We work with kids and teachers in K-12 schools all across the state around understanding where energy comes from and how our choices about the energy we use has an impact on our climate. And our work these days is including a lot more workforce development as we go into these classrooms, talking to kids as young as kindergarten about that there are jobs out there that they might be interested in someday, and that the stuff that we are doing in our classrooms that's hands-on and that's science-focused could be relevant to a career for them. So we're very interested in what becomes of this climate workforce work that's ongoing right now. And I just wanted to report that what we're hearing is, especially at the middle school and high school level, a lot of kids who don't have a concept of what those jobs might entail, and the need for really making clear to anybody who's coming through our K-12 system that there's lots of opportunities out there, that there's opportunities for hands as well, for behaviors that we don't even think about. So that's work we're trying to amplify, and we're here for support in that.
I'll stand up. Hi, I'm Pam Lasser. I'm also with Resource. I'm the weatherization training coordinator. So I'm on the front lines setting up and running our Weatherization 101 training programs, which are intensive, designed to help jumpstart Vermonters into the trades. I have the privilege to interview employers to get to know what they're looking for, what they're needing, and interview and recruit trainees and applicants. So I get to hear what are their issues, what are they interested in, what are their challenges, their barriers to getting in. So I've heard kind of it all as far as who wants to get into this field, who is struggling to get into work. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, on both sides for growth, and this committee is really helping provide that.
All right. Hey, everyone. I'm Dylan Giambattista. Very happy to be with you today. And thank you to Representative Stebbins, who co-chairs this initiative with Carl Robachek from EAN. And I get to be one of those co-chairs too, but really just want to call out the work of our training partners, our education partners, folks at Efficiency Vermont and others is really where much of the momentum is coming for this work. So before I get into anything, just thank you for your good work. And also thank you to all of the lawmakers who are coming to this on a lunch before you go to the floor for a very long time. Your work is not easy this time of year, very difficult, in fact, quite tiresome. So thank you for giving some attention here. Gabrielle, do you want me to just present from here? I don't know, like what the.
Feel free to come up here because people can actually, if they're watching and not just.
Awkwardly off screen.
Yeah.
Just real quick, 2 handouts that we passed out. The first is this one with this colorful graphic in the corner. And I'm just going to start there. The Energy Action Network Climate Workforce Network team started about 1.5 years ago. And it was an idea that came together where I had just wrapped up some time serving in the legislature on the House Education Committee. I was on a board of post-secondary education. I was thinking about what are the needs of folks who want to go into fields, because we know in Vermont, we hear it all the time, oh, we got a workforce challenge. And indeed we do. We don't have enough workers across all sectors. But really knowing that climate workforce was going to be essential to not only doing the work of reducing our emissions, of adopting cleaner technologies into the future and the ways that people heat their homes and the way that they move in vehicles, but also that money would be coming from the feds at some point to do this work. We felt that starting early and beginning a conversation about the workers we need to do these jobs so that we don't leave federal resources on the table that are available to Vermonters coming up today and very soon and into the future to reduce the cost of equipment. We don't want to leave any of that money on the table. In Vermont, we always leverage our federal resources. And when we do that, we actually can provide benefits to our neighbors. So we got together and we said, well, what are we talking about? When people talk about climate workforce, you all know we got a Global Warming Solutions Act that sets legal mandates for how much Vermont must reduce emissions in 2030 and 2050. You know that we have laws coming online or rules, be it clean cars and trucks, be it conversations underway in the State House, the Affordable Heat Act, how we reduce emissions in homes and businesses. And we said, well, what are these jobs that we're talking about? What do they entail? Now, when you think about it, electricians, it makes sense. You want to electrify some things, you're going to need them. Weatherization techs, you know you're going to need them to make sure that our homes are airtight. But there's other occupations that maybe haven't been as well studied or understood in this field. And the idea of climate workforce, it doesn't exist. There's no federal definition for this work. So where we began as a group, we pulled together our coalition partners, we started meeting, and we reviewed all of the industry classification system codes. This is like 3,000 occupations that the feds define. And we worked up a definition for climate workforce that was a bit broader than some of the data we had available. We reviewed the state reports, which there's a Clean Energy Development Fund, Clean Energy Jobs report that comes out each year. We took a look at that. But we started to say, look, we need to take a broader look at this because the Global Warming Solutions Act requires that all sectors reduce emissions. So it might not just be an electrician. It might be like a plumber or pipe fitter in the future. It might be someone who's actually working in conservation work. It might be foresters. It might be people in any number of fields. And we started from a place of trying to define that. Well, we determined that previously we knew maybe it was like 17,500 employees that had been, or occupations that had been sort of, I should say, workers that had been identified by the Clean Energy Jobs Report. In our analysis, we put it closer to 18,900 when we look at all those occupations. So the next step was, well, we know we have about 18,900 workers in this state. What are we going to have to do to scale these occupations? Because suddenly the Inflation Reduction Act had passed in Washington, a lot of money coming to Vermont for this type of application. And we started to say, well, we got to start thinking about the needs of our employees and our employers. Maybe it's, Vermonters who right now aren't working in any of these fields. We need to understand their needs. And we need to start thinking about what the employer needs are going to be if they want to transform their business into a climate-focused mission. So we've held a series of focus groups, and that is this handout, which is a little less flashy, but has lots of really good information on it. And over the past couple of months, we held a series of meetings using community partners who brought together Vermonters of all walks of life with sort of focus areas to try to get like a geographically dispersed group, folks of different backgrounds, and we worked with those community partners to hold listening conversations. And you'll see on this that if you look at the most important job considerations, these are themes that are pretty familiar, right? Like people want a good paying job. They want good benefits. They want to have a job that helps their community and their world. And one of my colleagues over here said it earlier. Many younger folks who we also heard from in Focus on said, we don't really know what these jobs are that would help contribute to climate solutions, right? Like, maybe someone's parent is a plumber. It's possible that, kids who know that parent might not know that that job could be, installation of a cold climate heat pump, could be installation of a geothermal energy system in the future. It could be any number of things. And helping young people connected, that's one of the findings that we've begun to think about. How can we actually spur knowledge of this in and around Vermont? There are some amazing findings in this. We've just begun to dissect it. And as a group, we're holding meetings to really think about what we can next do for prospective employees and employers. But I've got some good news for you here today. The good news is that if you are a House representative and you're going to vote on the fiscal 24 budget in a few minutes, there's some really exciting stuff in there that we have had policy conversations about with the Environment and Energy Committee, with the Commerce Committee, and funding was put into the budget to actually use an established platform for career pathways. I don't know, are any of you familiar with Advanced Vermont? They do, essentially, they're part of the Vermont Student Assistant Corps. They hold a listing of all the pathways and career opportunities in the states for different in-demand fields, and they've been working to scale it up. So they focused on things like the needs of our healthcare workers. There's money in the state budget that you're about to vote on that actually would help them scale it up to include climate workforce occupations. So not only electricians and other things, we're talking about, again, conservation biologists. Things like, the fundamentals of running a business. You need bookkeepers, accountants, all these fall under there. And these are job openings that are here today. So creating awareness out there is something that we had advocated for. So we've actually asked for things like funding for a public awareness initiative to ensure that this would be allocated. And we're going to continue that conversation this session. It's really exciting and it's critical. And as we hear from young people, they don't know what these jobs are or what the earning potential is. We need to help them understand it. The second thing that I want to celebrate with you today is that in the budget, there's also an appropriation to the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund to expand a business coaching program that they currently are using, but to expand it to focus on climate focused businesses. So if you're a business right now, maybe you're currently a fuel delivery company. This would be a coaching program where experts, the Vermont Sustainable Jobs Fund, have pulled together and entrepreneurs. They would come in and coach the business on how to become a climate focused mission. So if that fuel provider wants to begin installing cold climate heat pumps, this would be a program that would help them through a leadership organizational approach make that happen. There are funds in the state budget to do that. That's going to be voted on here shortly. Those are just two examples of the types of programming things that we can do and that lawmakers are currently contemplating that we feel could begin to elevate this conversation about the jobs that are needed, the opportunities in these fields, the opportunities for entrepreneurs who want to move ahead of the pace of policy to really create a business model for the emerging climate policy Vermont is adopting, that's coming from the feds. And we think that all of this will serve to really address this need and to drive economic activity. That's going to be good for Vermont, it's going to be good for our communities, and it's going to be good for our climate goals. So when I see a win-win-win like that, I'm ready to applaud because we got money in the budget, and now we need your help to continue doing the work. The folks over here, if you're in training right now, if you're in weatherization or clean energy solutions, if you're in education, they are the ones doing this work to prepare these workers and then to also identify who else can move into these fields. It's critically important and it's happening. So I would encourage you to reach out to them if you could. I've left a lot out, but this is a short meeting. You've got to go to the floor and vote soon. I wanted to mainly just prep it with this, but don't underestimate. There is an economic opportunity with climate that businesses who move with it will capture the value of, and it will benefit all Vermonters. So, Gabrielle, I don't know where you want to go with it, but we got the experts over here.
That's helpful. Thanks, Dylan. Much appreciated. Do people have questions? I mean, any specific questions to the trainers who are working with, future workers and students? Any observations, any thoughts?
Sure, thanks. Any connections to like Vermont Tech or any of the other educational, more formal educational programs?
Yeah, well, let me just say this, that if you want to talk to Vermont Tech, career and technical education leaders, so CTE centers, and even secondary education, we have a network that is now formed. We just came from a meeting this morning where we had the Vermont State Colleges system head of economic development and workforce with us talking about these concepts. So it's a great forum in which you can explore policy. I think our goal would be, and I'm sure others have thoughts about CTE and secondary education and capturing folks to sort of post-secondary credentialing and opportunities. Like, we really need to figure out in this state how we're going to turn our existing infrastructure, our educational infrastructure, into helping students understand the opportunities in these fields. Because I think there is a disconnect between, like, trades. We've all talked about CTE and the stigma. It's time to wipe that out, because we really need folks at this point to go into these fulfilling, in-demand, high-paying careers that have tremendous growth potential. So I don't know, Tom or others, if you want to weigh in.
I mean, Resource collaborates with VTC and other programs. We sometimes will, we sometimes pass students on and graduate them into VTC. Mostly, we're working with a slightly different population who's doesn't have interest in going to or let alone four-year degree, who aren't working but want to work and just are missing that little piece that helps them do it. Our Youth Build program works with high schools, so we're engaged with the high school system, but we're working with dropouts or folks who are really struggling in school. Schools are struggling with them. And we are an alternative that can work with students so that they get their degree, they get an industry recognized skill credential. They devote half their time to providing service to the state through building affordable housing or weatherizing homes or doing other types of public facility improvements. They graduate with a new sense of confidence in themselves, and they go on and get usually a job. I mean, a few of them go into college, but our college placement, Pam would have a better sense of this, I think it's under 5%. But I don't think that's a problem. I think that's okay. These are students who learn by doing, their hands-on, that's the way their modus operandi. So I think we're connected, we're in the same room, we're talking to, but we're definitely serving different populations in the tech programs.
And just to clarify, they are part of this coalition. They're just not here right now. If you look at this little green box, all of those, actually, I don't know if I've ever personally spoken with one of these groups, but everybody else here, sorry. Really glad that didn't happen on the floor. This green box, are all folks that have participated in meetings, have weighed in terms of where we should go as a network action team. And for example, when we first approached Commerce and Economic Development last year for their first for last year's workforce omnibus bills, those educational players were part of the conversation and the identification of priorities. So just because they're not here doesn't mean they're not part of it. I saw Representative Campbell and I also saw Representative Austin. We'll do you first.
So another dimension to this is people who are already working in the trades. I'm thinking especially of people who are doing the building, who need to understand building science better than they do now. And I've talked about this with all of you before, but I guess I'm thinking in terms of now we have builder registration in place. Residential building contractors have to be registered, which provides an opportunity for piping information to them about energy codes, for example, the fact that there are energy codes and they're mandatory, and voluntary certification. So this is an opportunity to get to them and provide some training resources to them. So I'm wondering if people are thinking about that. And another part of this that I hope we get past this year is something around energy code compliance. I mentioned a lot of people don't even know we have energy codes. Well, that's because we have no central office that's charged with administering the codes or enforcing them. We hope to fix that maybe next year by creating a study committee this year with the stakeholders involved. So my question is are people thinking about that in terms of training programs? Has anybody here got anything that they can say about it?
Well, I mean, I think the Weatherization Training Center grant from the Department of Energy that's going to be a real focus of that is providing weatherization, building science.
To people who are in the trades now.
Well, I think it's a 3-year grant. You can probably speak to it better, but it's going to examine what the needs are and then how to do it with the 3rd year actually getting something built and done or up on the ground. I mean, it's not necessarily a facility construction project because it's not clear yet. Year 1 is sort of figure out what type of need is it. Okay. But it clearly the purpose is to expand weatherization training at all different levels, entry level, advanced, medium level, advanced. I mean, there's a whole series of steps, I think.
Yeah, great. I just want to raise the profile of that issue then.
And to speak to your comment about existing contractors, I know one of our other members who couldn't be here today, Guy Payne, runs Sion Sustainable. I think he's running some of those trainings to provide that training for.
Yeah, but he's in Brattleboro, which is,
Yes, but their training is all over the state.
Yeah, okay.
I just spoke with him the other day. They have some coming up this way and whatnot. I think he's working on recruitment for employers.
Okay, terrific.
Representative Austin.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, every month I participate, if I'm not in session, in a refugee meeting of all providers for refugees, all advocates, agencies. And I mean, it just seems like this would be also a really good opportunity. We have a lot of Afghan refugees coming over now. So if someone could maybe just go on, and at that meeting, because they have people do presentations.
I think that would be great. I know that individual organizations have made direct connections. I mean, I know, for example, Integrated Solar down in Brattleboro has hired a bunch of new Americans, and it's been a great alignment. But that'd be great. I'll definitely.
I can email you that.
That'd be fantastic.
Yep.
We're connected with some of those groups, and we do recruitment. And in fact, we had a construction intensive a couple of years ago that was all new Americans. I mean, which we haven't repeated it partly because we realized that by providing that the language barrier is one of the things that we need to. It's sort of a prerequisite. So we actually want to be able to teach the course in English with a little bit of support where we need to, rather than what we did in that course which was full translation services and stuff. But some of the graduates got to the point where they didn't have the language skills, they had the technical skills, but that created some challenges. I think we got many of them employed, but it was we haven't repeated that time. But we are connected. We have many new Americans enrolling in both Youth Build and our intensives regularly, especially in Burlington because there's a big population center.
What this group is all the, agencies and providers in the state. It would be one group, and if you presented and have a contact, that would probably be helpful.
What's the name of the group again?
So it's called, it's RISPT or something, and I forget what it stands for, but it's refugees something. And it's run by the state. There's a state office, an agency that runs it. And I'll get Gabrielle the contact information.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we look to get our information out to all different groups and do a lot in the greater Burlington region, the USCRIGP, but it's all, there are unknown networks around the state that it's always good to get contact.
Representative Pat.
I'm just curious whether there are types of jobs. I mean, most of the jobs that have been mentioned are ones that I understand that what their role is in here, whether it's in weatherization or in trades like plumbing or electricians and things like that. Are there any things that are like up and coming in this area that people like me would not have guessed yet? Just new stuff.
I'll just throw out you'll say, oh yes, but mass transit. I mean, there's got to be some solution to mass transit in some form, and it's a topic that we consider. That's just one example. There are many, I think, and jobs will have to transform.
And one of the areas that when I spoke with VTC, this is about a year ago, that they were they were seeing just phenomenal sign up levels for this one class was for aeronautical. So with beta technologies, to start to train people to be able to be part of, electrified aviation. So that's, and that's also, I believe it's one of the courses that's probably going to be, focused a little bit more with the technical center in the Chittenden County area because it's going to be located closer to the airport. So that's an example of new opportunities. As Dylan had said earlier, when we were looking at the list of 2,000 to 3,000 types of jobs, we started with the Vermont Clean Energy Industry Report because it existed. But if you look at the Climate Action Plan, there are parts of climate solutions that relate to resiliency, that relate to how we plan our communities, whether or not we have, circular agricultural processes. So that's why our list of jobs included, some jobs in industries like forestry, agriculture, public transit, materials recovery, because it is more than just what we do to our buildings. It happens to be that right now that's a big bang for our buck. But again, I think that's one of the really exciting parts of this little area of climate solutions. Any other questions otherwise or comments? I am happy. You have contact information on these documents and we can wrap it up so folks can have at least 15 minutes before a nice long floor. But many, many thanks to you all for coming out and joining us today and for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
How did we do that at the last?
Mind if I steal them? No. Take them. Yep. That's what they're here for. Yeah.